Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
Colin Trevorrow was supposed to be the original director for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and believe it or not, it was actually supposed to come out in May of this year, 2019, and of course we know it got delayed until December of this year, 2019. It's just kind of interesting. I mentioned the date as something that we can look back at and say, wow, imagine already being done with this sequel trilogy and knowing what would have happened in this film. But he talks about his potential writing credits in the film and also the return of Emperor Palpatine and how it wasn't even his idea, it's actually all J.J. Abrams' idea. So in this interview they talk about his writing credit. He says, "I'm not sure anyone who chooses the creative life should expect things, but I'm grateful to J.J. Abrams for embracing some of our ideas. It's exciting that fans will get to see the moments that felt essential to all of us." Not much of a comment there, more than just a hey, thank you, I guess. But yeah, he is getting a writing credit for, I think, the story elements of The Rise of Skywalker. Of course, not everything, but they're probably going to put story co-written by or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But he talks about Emperor Palpatine coming back, and here's what he has to say. "Bringing back the Emperor was an idea that JJ brought to the table when he came on board. It's honestly something I never considered. I commend him for it. This was a tough story to unlock, and he found the key." And then they ask about his specific work on the script, and he said, "That's not my place, especially right now. I know how hard this crew has worked over the past 2 years, and a lot of them are working with us now on Jurassic. I want to support them as they put this film out into the world. In the end, I'm just proud to have my name in space." And you gotta give him credit for not, revealing anything just yet. We do want to find out what his story would have been like, probably in the future after The Rise of Skywalker comes out. But I do think it's a little interesting that JJ was the one who decided to bring back Emperor Palpatine, because that kind of tells me, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, that they weren't planning this out from the beginning, that when it comes to The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, the idea wasn't, hey, let's bring in Palpatine as the villain of the overall story. And JJ says, as a defense to that he doesn't really know a book that doesn't have the main villain at the end of the chapter, in the final chapter, like the rest of the books or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, I'm paraphrasing that quote, of course, but still, I get his meaning. Doesn't mean I agree with it, not entirely, but I do think it's a little interesting that Colin wasn't going to bring Emperor Palpatine back, and with the death of Snoke, I wonder how he would have handled Star Wars Episode 9. But Colin also had some impact over The Last Jedi. You remember Rian Johnson said that he wanted R2-D2 to be on the Millennium Falcon when they leave to go find Luke Skywalker. He said that to J.J. Abrams, so J.J. changed that up in Episode 7. For The Last Jedi, though, Colin had some requests for Rian Johnson. Here's what he had to say about it. "I just asked Rian if he could include a little moment where Rey and Poe meet for the first time. They're such beloved characters, it felt right for them to have some history in the next movie. I thought the way he did it was perfect." So with that, I'm pretty confident Colin was going to try to do what JJ's doing, and that's have these three characters, the three essential characters to the sequel trilogy, Finn, Rey, Poe, all go on an adventure together. I do think it's odd that we're just now getting them going on an adventure together. Unlike the prequels and unlike the original trilogy, your trio of characters normally start out together. The middle film is where they split up, kind of find their own little journey and destiny and their part of the story. And then the final film is where they team up one last time to go destroy the Sith and the dark side. You didn't get that with the prequels, but you get that with the originals, which is the gold standard of Star Wars. It's weird that now we're getting them all to team up at the very end, and that they haven't really teamed up until this final moment. But hey, it's nice to know that Colin would have followed that same kind of trajectory. I think it's interesting that he wouldn't have brought back Palpatine, because that kind of lends towards the J.J. Abrams member berries thing. If you've ever seen South Park, they do a lot of episodes making fun of The Force Awakens and Star Wars, and how J.J. Abrams is doing a lot of, you remember this, you remember that, and it seems like he's doing the same thing with Palpatine with Episode 9 of, oh, you remember Palpatine? Well, he's back, and I'm excited to see Palpatine in Episode 9. I think that's an unpopular opinion at this point. I'm not entirely sure how they're going to pull it off, but I do like Palpatine as a villain. I do think he's a great villain for the Skywalker saga. It's just going to be really interesting to see him come back, and I'm praying to God they don't ruin his character, honestly, and they don't ruin the story arc of Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, and then defeating the dark side. Just think that there's some potential to mess that up a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. It does tell me, and it does confirm for one thing on a lot of Star Wars fans' minds, and that is that they weren't planning Palpatine's return from the beginning. If Colin Trevorrow had his way, Palpatine wouldn't be coming back. So that wasn't something that when Lucasfilm approached him, they said, hey, by the way, you gotta bring Palpatine back. And I know when it comes to the reveal of Palpatine, there was supposed to be a different way that it was done, but I don't want to speak too much on that. I don't want to get in trouble or get my source in trouble, because if you say something too specific, Lucasfilm can track down who that comes from, because everything's normally kind of tight when it comes to who knows what over there. But anywho, besides the point on that, I am excited to see how they bring back Palpatine in Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Nervous as hell that they're going to mess up the character, but I don't think you can really mess up the character of Palpatine. I think you can just mess up the impact that he had on the story, or the impact of Anakin Skywalker being the chosen one, and Luke Skywalker redeeming his father and defeating the dark side. It's just oddly interesting to think that Colin Trevorrow's film wouldn't have dealt with Palpatine, and the main villain likely would have just been Kylo Ren, or maybe someone else. I don't know. It's one of those things where, yeah, in a few years we're gonna have to ask him, what was your Star Wars Episode 9 going to be like? What would be the difference between your Episode 9 and J.J. Abrams' Episode 9? And I would really like to know what was the creative difference that he had with his Episode 9 and Lucasfilm's version of it, and what they were foreseeing for Episode 9, and how his would differ from the final cut, and what kind of drove them away. From what I do know, and from what the inside people told me, was that he actually had a script going, it just wasn't what they wanted. It just didn't work out for him or Lucasfilm, and they didn't really give him time to rewrite the script either. They were trying to, you have to have this by a certain time, you have to have a production to start going, and a date to start shooting and everything, and time was of the essence, and he just couldn't get it finished in time, which is sad, but maybe good in some way. Maybe the Episode 9 we get would be better. But remember, his Episode 9 is supposed to come out in May of this year. We were already supposed to be done with the sequel trilogy. I just think that's an interesting alternate universe that we're not living in to see. I mean, I really wonder how different Star Wars and the state of Star Wars would be if in May of this year we would have had Episode 9, finish up the Skywalker saga, and then now we have The Mandalorian and Jedi Fallen Order and everything, and we wouldn't have another Star Wars film for, I mean, really, at that point, who knows when? We would already have the box office numbers for Episode 9 and everything. The title would be completely different. We really have no idea what the difference would be with Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9, other than the fact that it wouldn't have a Palpatine in it. I just think that's very interesting. So tell me your thoughts below. What do you guys think about Colin Trevorrow's statements on this? He's getting a story credit in Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. He had some impact over The Last Jedi with Poe and Rey meeting. And also, it was J.J. Abrams' idea to bring back Palpatine, and Colin Trevorrow definitely would not have done that with his film. Tell me your thoughts about everything below. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see y'all next time, and may the Force be with you always.